Unlocked is brought to you by Invincible, a program designed to unlock the potential of people and teams inside your organization. Join companies like Pfizer, Delta, the CDC, Google, and Chick-fil-A, and others in over 116 countries that are currently using this program to increase productivity and develop healthy cultures. Access hundreds of hours of content that is accessible anytime, anywhere. And finally, use real-time data to understand the health of every team inside your organization, which teams are performing and which ones aren't. Then understand the why behind that performance. Get free access to Invincible for 30 days by visiting www.giant.tv/30days. Here we are. Welcome to another show. We are all about unlocking the potential of people so that we can unlock the potential of our organizations and our businesses moving forward. I'm Scott Waldron. I'm your host, and I'm here talking today with Laurie Myers, who will inspire you to stand up and keep going. Laurie has a lot of experience in her life in the pharmaceutical industry. That's where she dwells. That's where she's been. That's where she is. And she has done all types of things within that industry. And it hasn't just been her alone. She talks about mentorship, and we talk about what it takes to keep moving when things turn out difficult for us in life, as this year has been for a lot of people. This is hopefully going to give you a little bit of that boost you need to move into 2021. So let's get started talking to Laurie. Here we go. Welcome everybody to another episode of Unlocked. I'm so excited today because I'm talking to somebody that is way more smarter and more experienced and more everything than I am. And that's where we get educated, right? So Laurie Myers, thanks a lot for being here today. You are in the pharmaceutical industry. Yes. You come from a background of being a scientist, right? In your early career, a marketer, an operations person. You've been involved in mergers. You are now the COO of a startup dealing with ADHD, and in the pharmaceutical industry, you've dealt in big pharma, mid-size, small start. I mean, holy moly, the experience is crazy. You've got an amazing wall. Like what else can you bring to the table? I mean, that's amazing. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Yes, my pleasure.
Let's talk a little bit about your path. Okay. Mm-hmm. Your path is interesting to me because of where you've been. You haven't stuck in one thing. I mean, scientists stay scientists, right? Mm-hmm. Marketers go to school for marketing and they stay marketers. People go to get their MBAs and they stay in the kind of executive programs and build businesses and whatever. You've jumped around. What's enabled you to do that? And what was it that was attractive to you to do that in the first place?
So different answers for different stages along that way. So when I started out, if somebody ever told me, I mean, I'm a scientist, trained scientist. If they ever told me I'd be in business, I would have thought, well, why would I do that? I went into the pharmaceutical industry as a staff toxicologist. And if you're doing drug development, toxicology is at the end of the R&D cycle, right before you go to clinical medicine. And I was just one of those people, I wanted to see what the rest of the story was. And so I approached the management, the leadership in the company at the time, and they gave me the opportunity to become a marketing person. And so I thought if I didn't do well, I'd have 1 year, they'd still take me back in R&D. But I went into marketing, and I have to admit, I never looked back. And all it did is allow me to then explore another aspect of the pharmaceutical industry, which is the one love I've had consistently throughout my career. So I then became a marketer, and the rest of all those changes sometimes were not in my control. Like the first one, I made a concerted effort to do something else. But because the amount of mergers I went into or that were happening around me, I had the opportunity to have different career paths. So I did working in an advertising agency, and I did work for a consulting company. Each of those brought different skills and also awarenesses in myself of what I was good or not good at. But then I think that actually helps you then manage other people to help them find out maybe early in their career what they are good at. So asking that question, what do you love? Where do you see your best skills? And I do that today as I'm mentoring some young people we have in our office that are pharmacists trying to make their way into the pharmaceutical industry. So as you come up the ladder, you become more senior. You realize that there's, again, additional aspects of the industry that you can explore. And so when I was given the chance to head operations, which allowed me then to take on clinical operations in a bigger way, and of course, manufacturing operations, which I had never done before, I really thought that was cool. And I've learned more about manufacturing than I ever thought I would know. So I'm grateful for the people who gave me those opportunities along the way.
Okay, so it's the people that enabled you to kind of explore these paths, people asking you questions, people putting you in positions. This wasn't something that was just like, I want to be a marketer now, or I want to go into operations now. I want to learn about manufacturing now. It was these things that were presented to you and people that helped you along this path.
Yes, both. It was an opportunity at a particular time. I can tell you when I went in to see that executive leader, and as I'm a scientist and I'm looking for how to hop over and find out the rest of the story, I'm not sure I even knew anything about marketing. But he saw that potentially that was an opportunity I could have, and I took it. So there's two things. You have to be open to opportunities, and then you have to kind of take the risk on them and go. You might fail, and that's okay. You have to be willing to fail.
But I think that fear of failure is what holds us back, right?
Yeah, but the more you do it, the less you have the fear. It's like being embarrassed about something. If you get embarrassed a couple of times, you realize, okay, I've lived through that. Then you're less worried about being embarrassed. So you also become less worried about fear or making a mistake. Because I'm telling everybody who's listening, you're going to make mistakes. You and everybody else.
And that's weird because we know, like, we've been alive. Most of us are adults, right? And we know that we've messed up, and we know that we've learned because we've been 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, and we realize that we made some bad mistakes, right? And we know that we learned from those things, but yet we still have this like block that like, oh no, you're right. What's going to happen? And I don't know. I call that a wall of self-preservation. Like it holds me back because I'm afraid of losing something. I'm afraid of, or I'm trying to hide something, or I'm trying to prove something to somebody, right? There's this wall up. How do you break down that wall? What would advice? What would you do to tell people, hey, you got to break that wall down, because only then are you going to make progress?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say, I don't think, I mean, I'll just speak personally. I don't think we ever get rid of all of our insecurities. And I don't care how old you are or where you are or what situations you're in. And they probably make us a little bit more humble and maybe a bit more empathetic for other people when you recognize you have these in yourself. You're not like this most robust being walking the face of the earth. So do I think they ever completely go away? No, but I think that, it's other people encouraging you. Like I encourage people, my girlfriends, I'll call them on the phone. They'll say, well, you shouldn't worry about this. You shouldn't worry about that. It's the people in our inner circle that keep us going and encourage us. And my daughter, even, she'll say, she's a junior in college now. Mom, don't worry about that. Or Mom, you shouldn't be wearing that, on both sides. What are you thinking? So it's the people in your network, in your life that keep you engaged and keep you going. And we're grateful for those people. But the other thing is then you become one of those people for others, especially as you're mentoring. Encourage them to move.
Yes. There's one of my employees who has been with me now for 6 years. There's a mentorship program we have in the design community. here in the graphic design community. And I've mentored many times in this program, and it's really helped me feel like I'm giving back to the community. It feels like, hey, I'm helping this person through their career. Hey, it's a time for me not to think about myself. It's a time for me to think about others, right? And do that thing. And it's made me better because as we build businesses, as we get just hunkered down in our day to day, we kind of get tunnel vision, right? We kind of start, it becomes a very selfish thing. We start worrying about me and my success and my advancement and my deadline and my project instead of the whole and what we can give to the community. So I forwarded this to my employee. I said, this is going to be one of the best things you can do to help yourself advance in your career. And she probably doesn't understand that yet at this point, but that's really what that is. So your mentorship, somebody mentored you, you're mentoring somebody else. What is it that you get out of that?
So I'll say two things. I think it's good to come to the point where you pass the baton. I just wish I knew I could have passed the baton earlier. So you don't have to know it all to be a mentor. Maybe just a little small piece that somebody else needs to get from you. But what do I get from it? I think it's nice to know that you can help. I think it's a good thing to know that you have something to offer someone else, that you have something that you've learned that you can. It's like putting a seed in the ground. So there's the seed, which is the bit of you, but then it can grow. And, it might have vines and grow into many other things. And you might have the opportunity to see that happen. That's kind of cool.
I like that. I like to know that what you've done is multiplied to others.
Yeah. And you're hoping for good multiplication.
Yeah, that's the thing. Right. We've got kudzu. We've got a lot of kudzu here in Georgia, and it's like I look at them like, oh, that looks so cool. Like it's covering all the trees and everything. And my wife's like, it's just killing all the trees underneath, right? And I'm just like,
thank you for reminding me.
It still looks cool, but we want to make sure that's good health that we're multiplying. So what is the path to being a good manager then? If we want to multiply the health of what we do into other people, whether it's mentorship or employees or team members, what is kind of that path that we should all take?
Yeah, So I think there's kind of there's parallel pieces of being a good manager. One is the credentials of what you're offering, that discipline that you're actually bringing to the table. And you're probably, I'll speak for myself, I was probably better at that along the way than the more personal or human aspects. So those are the parallel paths, your discipline and then your humanity. I think the humanity, for me, I mean, the discipline, I always was careful about my science or my marketing and having a rigor there that I could share with someone or learn. I had to learn first and then share. But the humanity piece is harder. You have to have a few knocks. Who loves those? I think there are people who are more empathetic and more compassionate earlier in their lives than perhaps I was. It might have taken me to have a child. And then you realize that, you're terrified. Now you're really terrified about making a mistake because there's no training on this. And I only have one child, so I really only got one good shot. So I think those things, I don't know, they make you more flexible, more genuine. When somebody comes to me and they have an issue with having a baby, or I understand the time they're going to take. I understand that they may not be as available immediately when I need them, but they'll come back if they're a good employee. And then I just hope that they remember that someday when they have to be the me. Like I don't necessarily like the concept of paying forward. It's just kind of a circle. You give, you get, you give, you get. And then you get. I mean, people tell me if I trust them and they trust me, they'll tell me when I'm wrong. I need to know sometimes, right? No, Laurie, it's not going to work. All right, then I'll step down and stand down and do something else.
And that is what we call psychological safety. When somebody feels that they can challenge you and feel safe in that environment, that's when we all breed health. That's when we all understand that we give and we get, you know? If I'm just in a room and I'm bulldozing conversations and I'm just taking up all the oxygen, I think my ideas are the best and yours are not, and I'm never open to that listening, to that dialogue, people are just not going to want to give back. People aren't going to want to push back, and they're not going to feel safe pushing back. And eventually that a relationship will deteriorate. So I think that that's one of these components to being a successful leader, right? In life and in business and whatever we do. So what other things have helped you on this path of success and being where you are right now?
Let's see. I guess being where I am right now, I'll take is that I think I was just open to learning new things. I would like to think of myself as an ongoing learner, a lifelong student. And I will say there's just a few things in the pharmaceutical industry that I would prefer not to have to learn. But other than that, if you needed me to do something else, and I don't think I'm becoming a lawyer at this part of my life, but if I need to understand about patents and how to get them done, I do that. If I need to understand about manufacturing, I'll do that. Whatever finance I need to be engaged in to make sure I'm running my business well, I'll do that. And if I have to learn a new skill, bring it on. I would say that's the only thing. Be open to learning what's presented to you, unless it's really against your DNA, and you'll know that when it's presented.
Okay. Because you learned a lot of things that would probably be against your DNA. I mean, you went in to be a scientist, and that's a specific type of individual. Then you went over to be a marketer. Marketers and scientists don't usually like go, oh yeah, we totally like have the same brain, you know? And then operations, marketing and operations, again, don't really have the same brain, you know? Executives, and I mean, you're like this mess of like all these great pieces put together, you know? And I think that that's really fascinating to me.
Well, I think I think the thing is that there's a common foundation of the pharmaceutical industry. And that if you want to know the industry, there's many pieces that you can explore. I will say today, I see a lot more people who are trained in science going into the business of science. And so I think that since it's much more common today, people wouldn't think that the scientist, for me, there's an analytics in business that's very similar to the analytics in science. And I remember the day that aha hit me is that there is a flow to proper conduct in business, or to get from point A to point B in a business setting. It's not very different than setting up an experimental design. You're starting here, you need to get to here, and there is some sort of a concerted path you're going to follow. So I don't see there's a big difference. And then operations is just understanding how to get it all running, you know, doing the day-to-day and making sure it all's going in one place. So again, because my commonality is the pharmaceutical industry, for me, I just think it's another bit and piece.
Let's talk pharmaceuticals. You ready? Because I know you know a little bit of something about that.
A little bit, yeah.
Little bit. We are very in the midst of vaccinations for COVID. They just approved the Pfizer vaccine, and they're getting ready to hopefully approve the Moderna one, and where all of that is going. What has enabled that to happen? And there's a lot of people out there going, whoa, no, way too fast. I'm not touching that. You've got other people saying, hey, let's go, let's do this thing. I mean, there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of hype. Pharmaceuticals are on the forefront right now of the world discussion, the global discussion. And I'm not here advocating vaccines or not pushing for. What I want to know is what's enabled that to happen, that rapid discovery of this new vaccine.
So let me first say up front that what I'm going to say to you is my personal opinion, and people have all kinds of opinions, but this is the one you've asked me. I'm going to give it to you. For me, I think that we really need to thank the dedication of the thousands of scientists globally that have always been working in the background on either vaccines or the path of how RNA merges into vaccines, whatever that is that they've done, that certainly is way more above what I know about that level of science, that day-to-day has now come to a crescendo that leads to the COVID-19 vaccine in such a short period of time. So it's not something that just happens overnight. It's just something that people, they don't have a lot of bravado about. It's what they do every day. It's what they love every day, the science they're dedicated to every day, and it happens internationally, because you can see that all the different laboratories that have come to the fore with a potential vaccine. So I think that we have to thank the global world of science for not having to be the peacock all the time and just getting the job done. But when is needed, when society needs what they've been doing for so many years in a dedicated fashion, they will come together and they'll have an explosion of what's needed at the time. That's my personal opinion about it. And
so
then,
it wasn't,
I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you. I was just saying it wasn't just some scientists in the break room one day and then their boss came in and said, "Hey guys, we got to come up with a new vaccine for this thing." And they're like, "Oh, okay, I guess we're going to start from ground zero. Everybody start getting your stuff out and start working on this thing." So
now that some of that may have happened because it was a spark, but it was a spark based on years and years and years of research that they had previously done. It didn't just, it wasn't just like this magic moment. Well, it is a magic moment, I will say that, but it's really truly the dedication of many people who have studied many things, and then something clicked, and very quickly, gratefully.
and it was, you mentioned a global effort.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you can think about the scientists at Pfizer that have aligned with the scientists in Germany. You can think about the scientists at Oxford in England that have aligned with AstraZeneca, also English-based, but a global company. There are scientists in Boston that have been doing this work. So I think that there are scientists all over the world. And we also know that there's a vaccine that came from Russia. Now, I don't know much about that vaccine, but obviously there were Russian scientists who were working on the background for that vaccine to have it come quickly. So these were, there's been a global effort. And then I also think there's been a lot of communication clinically in this, around the vaccine, that has not necessarily happened before. So this is my interpretation of reading, but there's been clinical trials and discussion of data that I think has been more transparent than we normally see in drug development.
I would be willing to argue that these brilliant people out there in the world that are doing this brilliant stuff and this brilliant work, that are just advancing science so quickly now, have been brought to this point because of things you talked about earlier, right? Mm-hmm. Finding their path, finding their passion, people enabling them to be mentored and growing in their position, people, great leaders that have trained them, that have helped them excel in their jobs and in their careers. Maybe some of them were past marketers and became scientists, I mean, who knows?
I'm not sure you can go from marketing to science. I think
dang it, because I really wanted to do science in 2024. That was my path. I guess I'm going to hang that up. But I think that when we get down to it, it's those people that have enabled other people to become what they are today, right? And to do these things. And we look at the science, and it's all people that drives that. So I think that's so impactful and so important to remember in business, that it's the people that enable businesses, organizations, and now humanity to move forward, because that's what's happening.
So again, I'll come back to those parallel paths of the human parts and the discipline part. And both those will create what I'll use in my words, what you're calling the cradle of success. So you create this environment where people can both grow in their intellectual pursuit, but have the management or personality skills to advance it in a way that's acceptable by many people.
I love that. Can we talk a little bit about you in this statement that you wrote in here about what people are going to learn from us, right? And in this discussion, you said how as a woman you can stay in the game through marriage, divorce, raising children, corporate mergers, 2 downturns in the economy, and still smile and have a sense of humor. I love it, right? Because there's a lot of people that are smiling now at the end of 2020 going, I'm smiling because 2021's coming. I'm smiling because we have to smile in the midst of all of this hard stuff we've been going through. Some death, some losing businesses, just hardships, right? Some struggling with marriages, struggling with children and homeschooling and careers and all types.
I can't imagine what I would do if I had a grade school child right now. God love every parent out there.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got a college child, a daughter that's doing it, and I'm sure you're having to coach her through a little.
I do get those crazy phone calls. But that's okay. I mean, this is her path. This is her challenges that she has to face and become resilient with.
So you mentioned this stay in the game. Okay. Yeah. What does that mean?
Oh, wow. It's not so it's stay in the game. So I do think to be successful, you just have to keep going. I mean, yes, we can collapse. We can fall apart. I'd like to tell you that doesn't have to be an option. Also, I'm speaking to a large audience, but this year, both of my parents passed within days of each other. It wasn't COVID related. They both had illnesses. And in the middle of all this, we've had to manage this as a family, and I'm one of 5 children. So I don't know what to say. You smile because does anybody really want to hear you bitch? I don't know. It's just like, but it's not, I mean, when I look at what I do every day and I've had my challenges in the economy and losing and gaining money and, going through divorces and managing children on my own, my life is still so much better. I live now in Kansas City, Missouri, and in a very nice apartment building. 1 block behind me, if I walk around in the morning, there are people sleeping on the street. And no matter what my day is not that. So, and then, I just get up and go to work and we manage what we do. So, but I don't know any other way to success. And as I said to you earlier, never quit. I was given a little plaque early on in my career. You just got to keep going. And I say that for women because we do manage a lot. I'm not saying men don't manage a lot. I'm meaning to.
Oh no, I'll admit women manage probably more than men.
We do manage children, getting pregnant or not getting pregnant. And my daughter's adopted, so I had to think about that. And then going through a divorce and managing the family and taking care of who's going to clean the house and who's going to cook the dinner. And even if you're not the ones doing that, you're probably organizing it. Now today, as I mentioned previously, I cannot give these parents more credit for trying to work from home, keep the roof and the money coming in while managing children who are online, perhaps in another room, and not the best way to learn. So I guess, we're all doing it in our own way, not just me, but maybe it's for everybody to recognize that that's what they're doing. Just recognize that you too are staying in the game.
And people have been talking about that a lot lately, and then in the term of grit, right? And understanding
grit is fabulous.
What that is,
yes,
and being resilient and being able to push through hard things, and showing that tendency as children to push through also resonates and pushes them through as adults and helps them become more successful. Based on the social science and what they've been doing there. But that's a little bit what you're talking about. is
in fact, grit.
when you get knocked down, you get up.
Well, you're going to get up. Now, just are you ready to get knocked down again? Because it's going to happen.
And maybe
not right away.
Right. And that's probably that fear that we talked about earlier too, is I got knocked down really hard.
Yes. And
if I get up, I might get knocked down again.
Yes.
And maybe I don't want that. Maybe it's like, I'm good. I'm here. Cool. I'm good on the ground. I'm just going to stay here for a while. But then what happens? Nothing.
Yeah, no, you know, and staying on the ground for a little while might not be the worst thing, because sometimes you do have to recuperate. If you hit hard, you do need to regroup. But I mean, you can listen to all these, I always think the basketball players that talk about how many hoops they didn't have versus the ones they got. You just need to get enough to keep going. People that have been benched but come back. I mean, I think of the old Rocky movies. I mean, who doesn't have that? Everybody has that.
And that's really interesting when you bring up the Rocky movies, because this is what drives us as human beings, is that hero story. Mm-hmm. And if you look at every movie script, story of some sorts, whatever, you always have the hero of the movie. And you do a Star Wars, you can do it with, you know, Hunger Games, whatever. You've got your hero that's flawed at the beginning of the story. They have flaws. They're insecure. They've been beat down. Their parents have passed away in some way, shape, or form. Like, they're in a way defeated, and they come back to find this inspiration, this mentor in their life. Mm-hmm. You know, Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? It's Apollo, it's whoever that helps them push beyond what they're currently going through. But it takes ourselves, right? The mentor is there for us, and that's great to guide us and show us the way, but it's always going to be something in us that really pushes us beyond, that helps us at some point stand back up.
Yeah. And I really believe everybody has that in them. Can you find your purpose? You don't have to find it in the first 20 years of your life. But some days it really just, once somebody helps you get the path, it's really just putting, I mean, this sounds so cliche. It's really just putting one foot in front of the other. You know, okay, well, you're not happy today, but you're still going.
You know, we talk about that. And I talked about this on a podcast yesterday that I was on with somebody. He's like, why? Because we were talking about HR and leadership development, and we know the things we need to do. We know we need to communicate better and listen. But we have a lot of leadership that does not do that. They don't communicate well, and they don't listen. And so we know the simple things we have to do to make progress. We know we have to put one foot in front of the other to make progress, and yet we still don't do it sometimes, right? And that holds us back. It seems like you've been knocked down plenty of times in your career, in your life, and what you've done. And you've tried to just keep putting that foot forward in order to make progress. And that's gotten you to this point in your life of where you are now, and being on this show, which is probably the apex of your career, right? So
scared the heck out of me when you wrote to me.
I love it. No, this is fantastic. Cradle of Success. I love that term. There's little bits I steal from all my interviews, and I'm definitely going to steal that, because that's really, really, really insightful. And I love that idea. Thank you so much. Well, it's yours. I'll give you credit. You got it. What is it that you want to leave with the audience that's going to keep us smiling, that's going to keep us knowing that we can go? Does it fit in with your purpose? What is it that we need from you to take away from this?
Oh my, yikes. Well, I'm going to come back to something you just said about leadership. None of us have all the bits of success. Then if you just know what they are, you don't hire them around you. So you might look to your leader and criticize him or her for the fact that they're not the best communicator. Look in their team. Do they have a communicator? Have they realized that they needed to hire those people around them? So when we're firing arrows at a particular person, go more to the network, because I do think that successful leaders have that ability to be self-aware, and they know what they're missing. And so they bring it around them. So if you know who you are and you want to be successful, know your shortcomings and bring them around you.
I love it. Thank you so much for that. That is so important for us as leaders to be self-aware of our own shortcomings, right? Understand that we have weaknesses.
We have them. We all have them.
And that we need other people to lift up that part of our lives, right? Of who we are and what we do in order to create effective teams going forward. Yes. So I think that's really powerful.
Yes.
Well, Laurie, good luck. And the startup, this is startups are not easy.
Not for the faint of heart.
And even in the pharmaceutical startups, I can't even imagine the pressure of dealing what you have to deal with and managing what you're managing. So good luck with that and helping with the ADHD battle, because it's something that's very real. And I hope that you're able to make an impact in that community, because there's a lot of people that are suffering and that need relief. And so
your mouth to God's ears.
Good luck with all that. Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Have a nice holiday.
Thanks. How great is that? The cradles of success include having the ability to grow in our pursuit of what we want to do, what our purpose is, and finding that thing, but also the tools and the support and the mechanisms to enable us to do that. Mentors in our lives that will help us achieve what we want to achieve, to show us the way that we can then pass on to other people behind us. Fantastic. The other thing I loved about what Laurie said was that we don't all have the bits and pieces of everything. Okay. And the way we communicate is going to take a team effort, collaboration, understand what we're about. This world we're in right now, and she deals in the vaccine world with the ADHD thing they're working on right now. But in the world of vaccine, with the COVID crisis that's going on, it takes a global effort to move a lot of things forward, as it has with that. And that's what we need to remember. But behind all of this, behind all of our success, behind all of our experiences in life, behind our journeys and our paths, are people that are helping us achieve something great. And that is what's important to acknowledge. So I'm grateful for Laurie. I'm grateful for the insights she shared. If you want to hear more of these shows, you can go to my website, skotwaldron.com, find a lot of them there. You can go to my YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, and share with your audience there. If this is of interest to you, it's probably of interest to somebody else. So I really appreciate you, and we will see you next time.